when there's not a market for James Harden right now, that you certainly have the best offer to Philadelphia, then you're going to try to allow Philadelphia to come back to you at some point. But you heard Daryl Morey there. If he can't get the assets he wants, then James Harden is going to sit there.
It is not looking good for James Harden. Started out as a trade demand, turned into something way more uglier, and now there's a question about what James Harden's future might look like. So before we get to the content, make sure you drop, like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. Now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. My friends, we had a
legendary weekend on Prize Picks.
Your boy personally made $700, and I only missed 2 out of 11 of my picks. And you guys hit me up in the DMs and let me know about it. We're about to ramp it up for this week. Remember, you get a $100 deposit match on Prize Picks when you use my promo code microphone, and I post my picks onto my Instagram story at TheFlightMike for free each and every day that there's a football game. And thank you, Prize Picks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Right before NBA free agency began, James Harden did something that at this point we're all very familiar with. He demanded a trade from his organization once again, after getting exactly what he wanted from his last trade demand. You see, in 2020, the Houston Rockets offered James Harden a contract extension that would make him the highest paid player in basketball. A contract that would have paid him $50 million a year annually. James Harden turned it down, wore a fat suit instead, and gave us this gem of an interview.
We're just not good enough. We don't obviously chemistry, talent-wise, just everything. And it was clear, like I said, these last few games. I love this city. I literally, have done everything that I can. This situation is crazy. It's something that I don't think can be fixed. So, yeah, thanks.
Very shortly after, James Harden would get his wish. He would get traded to a contender where he could focus on winning a championship with his best buds Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. And to be honest, if James Harden didn't sustain an injury, things could have potentially turned out to be different. But after playing a grand total of 16 games with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, James Harden once again sneakily demanded a trade behind the scenes after a year and a half with the Brooklyn Nets. When you demanded a trade from the Rockets, it made a lot of sense. At this point, you're putting up great statistics on a team that clearly isn't going to win a championship. The Brooklyn Nets, you can make excuses as well. There was a lot of distractions off of the court. There were some questions about coaching. There are some rumors that James Harden didn't like the fact that the offense didn't run through him anymore. And I guess if you sprinkle on the fact that the James Harden rule was placed into effect by the NBA, which resulted in Harden being a significantly less productive player, although still a remarkable basketball player, just not the cheat code that he was prior to the foul rule being passed. And you get all the ingredients in place for Harden thinking that he needs another change of scenery. This time, however, it was perfect. You're getting traded in the Eastern Conference once again, which is weaker than the Western Conference. You get to team up with a perennial MVP candidate who eventually wins MVP in Joel Embiid. You get to reunite with your general manager who quite literally traded for you when you were the 6th man of the OKC Thunder and built rosters based upon your talents, hired a head coach to build an offensive system around your play style, and even consistently get you Hall of Fame teammate after Hall of Fame teammate. I mean, if you think of it this way, James Harden gets traded to the Rockets. He has a falling out with Kevin McHale. They fire Kevin McHale. They sign Dwight Howard. A few years later, once again, the Rockets had to choose between Dwight Howard and James Harden. They chose James Harden, and they hired Mike D'Antoni, who retooled his existing offensive philosophy that was based around pick and roll offense to be based around James Harden isolations. When they saw that their offense was too one-dimensional, they figured, why don't we bring in a point guard who is known for his ability to masterfully execute the pick and roll and pair that with the greatest isolation scorer in the NBA? And the Houston Rockets would trade for Chris Paul, and they got so close to making it to the NBA Finals. The only thing that could stop this team was an unlucky Chris Paul injury. The year after, you would see James Harden and Chris Paul bickering with one another, and once again, the Houston Rockets chose James Harden. They even asked James Harden who you wanted Chris Paul to be traded traded for, and they traded him for Russell Westbrook. And eventually this all culminates in Daryl Morey leaving after the pandemic and James Harden demanding a trade because he no longer had a general manager that would give him everything he wants. So reuniting with Daryl Morey on the Philadelphia 76ers seemed to be a home run. But once again, James Harden ran into some issues with Daryl Morey. One season removed from taking a gigantic pay cut that allowed the Philadelphia 76ers to sign his ex-teammates Daniel House and PJ Tucker, James Harden got frustrated at the fact that he no longer was being paid like the MVP candidate that he once was. And this resulted in a gigantic catastrophe. James Harden began parading around China, saying things like this.
Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of. Let me say that again. Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of.
The James Harden situation got so bad that there was a question about whether or not Joel Embiid would stay on the Philadelphia 76ers. Joel Embiid is considered by far to be the next player to potentially demand a trade from his existing team. Luckily for the 76ers, this isn't Joel Embiid's first rodeo. As a matter of fact, poor Embiid had to deal with the roster crumbling around him multiple times throughout his Philadelphia 76ers tenure. And once again, he told the 76ers that he's comfortable riding out the fact that his teammate is disgruntled. But that's not to say that Joel Embiid hasn't given the 76ers reality checks here and there.
I just want to win a championship. Whatever it takes. I don't know where that's going to be, whether it's in Philly or, anywhere else. I just want to have a chance to accomplish that. I want to see what it feels like to win that first one and then think about, the next one.
Which brings us to where we are right now. James Harden demanded a trade from the Philadelphia 76ers right before free agency started. He had no choice but to opt into his existing contract because a part of him knew that there was going to be no other team that would want to pay him maximum contract money. It wasn't a market for him. The only way it would work is if he got traded. The number one team on his list was the Los Angeles Clippers. And up until this point, James Harden still hasn't been traded to the Los Angeles Clippers. But it gets way worse. Way worse. Daryl Morey finally would clap back at James Harden. But to get an idea of how and why he clapped back at James Harden, you have to understand how James Harden is quite literally sabotaging his career right before our eyes. Look at what Matt Barnes had to say on All the Smoke recently.
I think James has to be careful because
He at that point now.
We're here.
The NBA doesn't need him.
We're here.
The NBA doesn't need him no more. So the way, and I'm all for player empowerment, all of us are for player empowerment, but he forced his way out of Houston, forced his way out of Brooklyn. Now he's trying to force his way out of Philly. Like, at some point, everyone's going to be and he's got so much talent and a lot of game left, could talk himself out of the league with his talent, which is crazy to think.
When you young and you hot,
Yeah,
they put up with everything.
They're going to let you rock.
When you old and
they like,
and one foot out the door.
Through it all, James Harden has been warning us that things are going to get really uncomfortable once training camp and media day comes by. Bear in mind that the last time James Harden was disgruntled at his team during training camp, he threw a basketball at Jae'Sean Tate, at that time a Houston Rockets rookie, in the middle of practice. So this could get really ugly, and James Harden's plan reportedly is to make things very ugly. So far, James Harden is nowhere to be found in Philadelphia for media day, as he is currently awaiting a trade from the Philadelphia 76ers. But how likely is that scenario to begin with? Here's what James Harden's teammates feel about this situation. Tobias Harris said that this isn't his first rodeo, citing Ben Simmons a few years ago.
Years ago, when that did happen, we just learned to control what we can control, right? Like, today's media day, tomorrow, first day of practice. We got a great group here. Everyone, collective guys out of here have been working their tails off all summer long.
Tyrese Maxey seems to be a little bit more empathetic and kind of changed the subject.
Over the last, maybe 2 years, year and a half, however long it's been. So, of course, we hope that he comes in and plays. That's always cool. And for myself, for our teammates, we got to keep going out there and playing regardless of the situation. Plan A, plan B, like Nick Nurse says, and be ready for whatever life brings us. PJ
Tucker has the closest relationship out of all of them to James Harden, going all the way back to their days in Houston.
That's my brother. No question. Everybody's questioning social media posting me. That's me having my brothers back no matter what. Our relationship goes way beyond basketball and the years we spent together. So that aside, Yeah, it's this ongoing thing, and it is what it is. At this point, it is what it is. Yeah, I know you feel strongly behind Fields.
But the thing that is making things even more uncomfortable is Daryl Morey may have made a move that might be a point of no return for James Harden. You see, in 2020, when James Harden was offered a huge contract extension that would make him the highest paid player in basketball, he also had a romantic interest. This romantic interest was a woman by the name of Shylin. Shylin was supposed to be the one for James Harden, a woman that he was very much interested in. And one day, during the pandemic, James Harden threw a party. And at that party, Shylin would get together with Kelly Oubre. So Shylin was messing around with Kelly Oubre while James Harden was still seeing her. And given the fact that James Harden already said that his relationship with Daryl Morey is beyond repair, then following this story, it definitely is beyond repair. Because the last addition that the Philadelphia 76ers made was signing Kelly Oubre Jr. to the Philadelphia 76ers. At this point, now James Harden, a person that just doesn't like being around Kelly Oubre Jr., is now on the same team as Kelly Oubre Jr. I haven't seen a storyline like this since Paul George got traded to the Los Angeles Clippers to play for Doc Rivers. Paul George used to date Doc Rivers' daughter, eventually would cheat on Doc Rivers' daughter with his current woman, and now the fact that he had to go back and play for Doc Rivers, at least there were theories out there, especially my own, that thinks that attributed to the fact that Paul George had such a horrific playoffs during the bubble. And then Doc Rivers would get fired shortly after. But even then, the thing that makes things even worse for James Harden is it doesn't seem like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Adrian Wojnarowski says that it's not even clear if Harden is going to be participating in training camp.
Obviously, James Harden was not on that flight, and it is unclear to the 76ers whether James Harden is going to meet them at Colorado State University out in Fort Collins and participate in training camp with them.
Now, even if he was to participate in training camp, he might make it really hard on the 76ers.
A trade, he wants to trade to the Clippers. I'm told that the 76ers and Clippers, they have talked recently, but there's been no movement.
The worst part is the 76ers and Los Angeles Clippers have talked recently, but there isn't really an appealing trade for the Philadelphia 76ers to make here. 2 days ago, we got a report from Jake Fisher saying that the Clippers definitely want James Harden. They have not been wanting to offer more than one first-round pick to get him. The Sixers need to get rid of James Harden because he doesn't want to play there. They need to compete for a championship this year with Joel Embiid and years down the line. I don't know what's going to happen if James doesn't get traded before media day, before training camp. I don't think James on his side of things knows what's going to happen. I don't think the Sixers know what's going to happen. The word I keep being told is it's going to be fireworks. The thing that's really unfortunate about this whole situation is James Harden is very, very delusional whenever it comes to his value currently. Don't get me wrong, one of the greatest offensive players in NBA history. James Harden is 34 years old. He's on a $35 million contract. I don't know why he's expecting more money at this point. Even furthermore, you're talking about a man that has made $300 million throughout the span of his career. And I know money is nice, but at a specific point, how much money do you need? It's very unclear what's important to James Harden because he could have been on the Houston Rockets getting paid $50 million a year to put on incredible offensive performances, but he didn't want that. He got traded to the Brooklyn Nets to team up with two future Hall of Famers in Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. He wasn't even willing to make it work out with them. He got reunited with Daryl Morey on the Philadelphia 76ers, and at the same time, he gets to team up with Joel Embiid and a pretty nice roster that surrounds all of them, and he doesn't want that either, all because he feels like he deserves to be paid more. At the end of the day, James Harden could be more trouble than he's worth. He's already a huge distraction to a team that could be a championship contender with him on the roster. And if other championship contenders see this, do you really want to bring in a guy who out of nowhere could throw a hissy fit if things aren't going his way? James Harden's no longer 29. It's 2023 and he's closer to the end of his career than the beginning of his career. And if he doesn't start acting like the future Hall of Fame veteran that he is, as opposed to a rookie and a child, then he could be out of the league sooner rather than later, especially if he keeps true to his warning of making life painful once he does arrive to training camp. So let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about all this, man. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.